leaked version of this Brexit reset deal. And yeah, just to clarify that we are going to be giving away rights to our fishing waters for 12 years. We've agreed to rejoin the EU's Erasmus student exchange scheme. Basically, everything else, well, we're going to be doing a deal when it comes to agricultural and plant and animal products. We're basically going to sign up to EU rules. We're going to have the European Court of Justice having oversight of it. Oh, and basically, we're going to pay for the privilege. We're going to pay apparently an appropriate sum of money. It's going to be in the billions, folks. It's going to be in the billions every single year. So, yeah, it's almost like being back in the EU, isn't it? But just by the back door where we have to pay, but we have no say. This is exactly what Keir Starmer wanted to do. It's what he tried to do from 2016 onwards, but failed to do with shadow Brexit secretary. He's finally got his wish. Love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Love to hear your thoughts on this next story as well. We've got a big review of sentencing that's going to be coming out. Could be as early as tomorrow by the former Cabinet Minister for the Conservatives. That's David Gauke. Full on good on Ramona as well, so they like him. He's one of the good ones for the Labour Party. But one of the things we understand he is going to be suggesting is that prisoners who are sentenced to under a year in prison, or offenders sentenced under a year in prison, could, instead of serving time behind bars for their community sentencing, clean bins or fill potholes in the streets. What would you make of that? Well, let's find out what Danny Shaw makes of it. He's a policing, crime and justice commentator. Joins us once again on the show. Of course, also a former advisor to Yvette Cooper before she was Home Secretary. Very good morning to you, Danny.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks
Hi.
so much. Long awaited this sentencing review. I mean, it's rather different from sentencing guidelines from the Sentencing Council. There's been a lot of talk from the government. We know, Lord Timpson, one of the Home Office ministers, well, Justice Minister, sorry, they're not very keen on people going to prison. They kind of think that prison doesn't work, and certainly for those sentenced to short jail terms shouldn't really be behind bars. But the idea that they're going to be emptying the bins and filling potholes, don't we already have people employed to do that?
Yeah, it feels like I've heard this before. I mean, I think every government over the past 20 years has tried to ramp up community penalties. Remember the high-vis jackets, orange bibs, picking litter, all that kind of thing. It's an attractive sounding policy, and perhaps it might work in some scenarios, but there are practical difficulties of doing it. You need people to supervise the individuals. Some businesses and supermarkets, frankly, won't want people doing this, that kind of work. Then you have to think about the potential risk to the public. So there are lots of factors to take into account. The main aim of David Gauke's review, which, as you say, is going to be published, we think, this week, is to make recommendations to cut the prison population, because we know that the population is expanding. There aren't enough places. Without some measures being taken, simply there won't be enough room in jails. And this is one of his ideas. He was very keen when he was the Conservative Justice Secretary, when Theresa May was Prime Minister in 2019, before Boris Johnson took over. He came up with the idea of basically barring people from going to prison for less than 6 months. That would have become law had Johnson not replaced May.
Yeah. Not a popular measure for an awful lot of people. The argument always seems to be from, and these tend to be the sort of, I mean, I know David Gauke well, he's been on the show many times in the past, where it's a bit hand-wringing sort of liberal, which is this idea that, well, short sentences don't achieve anything, so that's an argument not to sentence people to short sentences. A lot of people might say maybe a longer sentence might be more appropriate in some cases, but then the question is often for a lot of people is who gets put behind bars, because it's one thing, with Lucy Connolly's appeal last week, people say, mum who's got, a childminder with no criminal record, there's no reason for her to be behind bars whatsoever. She hasn't actually, she's not a threat to the public. But when you've got, say, a shoplifter, okay, so they're not, you might say, a physical threat, but how many hundreds of shoplifting cases are we going to allow someone to get done for before we go, at some point you have to go behind bars?
Well, exactly. I think this is the problem at the heart of the government's sort of law and order strategy. On the one hand, the Home Office wants police to arrest more people for crimes like shoplifting, for violence against women and girls, for knife crime in particular. They want more prosecutions, they want more convictions. On the other hand, the Ministry of Justice is pursuing a policy that is in effect going to reduce the prison population. The two are diametrically opposed. And I think most people would completely sympathise with the Home Office position. We've been too lenient on shoplifting. It's got out of control. But, under David Gauke's plan, anyone who's given a sentence of, potentially it would be 6 months, 12 months in custody, they won't serve that time in prison. They'll be out and they'll be shoplifting again. So I think there's a real problem at the heart of this. I don't think getting soft on those sort of sentences is the way to curb the prison population.
I certainly don't think it's going to go down well with the public, and of course the media are going to be on this all the time to sort of let's see what's the latest crime being committed by somebody who's out on one of these tagged programs. I mean, bearing in mind a lot of the people who get sent to prison, for an awful lot of them, they are massively repeat offenders. I mean, it's again and again and again and again. Vast majority of people, for instance, who commit knife crime don't go to prison. Some amazing stats are revealed at the weekend. I think most people are absolutely shocked by how many crimes someone has to do as a burglar or a shoplifter before they'll actually get sent behind bars. I know shoplifting, it's minimum 10, nearly always an average, I think, around 20. But for that, and those are the offences you've been caught and prosecuted for, not let alone actually committed and are not being caught for. And I think the British public is going to go, nope, this doesn't work for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's real jeopardy in this for the government in these proposals, which they will probably accept David Gauke's plans. I mean, there is one other aspect that I think has been reported on today, I would agree with, which is trying to remove more foreign national prisoners from our jails.
Some 10,500, aren't there?
Over 10,000. That's about 1 in 8 of of all the prisoners are actually foreign nationals. And there are some plans being put forward to sort of speed up the removals in various ways. It's quite complex. I think the difficulty is that you've got roughly a third of those 10,000 are actually on remand, so you can't remove them until they've had their trial. Yeah. And the other problem is that you do have difficulties in making agreements with some foreign governments about taking them back. What I would do is I would pay some of the foreign governments to house them in their prisons, because it would probably be more cost effective to do that. And I think that's the sort of approach the government should be looking at.
And in those cases also, we do want to make sure those people are behind bars. Often they are be committed some very, very serious crimes indeed. Really appreciate you joining us. Danny Shaw, policing, crime and justice commentator. Thank you for that. Sam Armstrong, look, this ain't going to wash the British public. And it's not a right-wing thing. Labour are completely out of touch when they think about this. Now, when Tony Blair talked about we're going to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime, that's fine. Of course, it's much easier not to be a knife-carrying yobbo if you've had a happy family life and you're not surrounded by gangs on your local estate. Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, people think that criminals should be deterred, they should be punished, and they should be locked away.
They think it for good reason, Julia, because these are dangerous and violent people. Now, they're going to come up with some nonsense about how everyone that's magically dangerous is going to be excluded from the scheme. Just remember who got released last year. One was Jason Hoganson, 53 years old. He was in prison for harassing and assaulting his ex-girlfriend. He was released early from prison under Keir Starmer's scheme. He went immediately back to her house, beat her again, harassed her again, went on the run, and I think he later died. But these are the kinds of people we are letting out.
Well, that's what we're letting out because we've got space. And the idea of this new sentencing policy is that we don't put them behind bars in the first place because we haven't got the space for them, because we're trying to build more prisons, but even the prisons we're building aren't going to be enough.
Well, we found 500 spaces magically, mysteriously after the riots last year, and last Thursday I spent the day sat in the Court of Appeal watching as Lucy Connolly was there in tears, crying. A 53-year-old mum of one that had no previous criminal history, who had a tweet up for 3 hours. She deleted herself. She apologised. We managed to find a cell for 31 months to keep her
I'm not
there.
even allowed any weekend review. Just we have to go to a quick break. But did she, we were expecting a decision from the court on Thursday, but it didn't come. We're told it's going to be a written judgment.
Well,
when is it going to happen?
I think actually I can say it's now going to be an oral hearing. It's going to be scheduled some point in the next week or so.
In the next week, so
but that was another weekend that daughter has spent without her mum over a tweet, Julia.
Yeah, deleted by her.
Yes,
exactly.
Bad tweet, but a tweet.
Yeah, but actually no one was harmed as a result. It was a horrible tweet, but no one was harmed as a result of that tweet. Exactly.